Welcome to my first Excel free online tutorial. What I thought I'd show you today is how to move around and select more efficiently in Excel. Alright, so Excel is used mainly to do math, but it can also be used to store a lot of data. Thus, this particular spreadsheet that I'm using is a database, and it's pretty long. So if I scroll down, which is what most people do, just scrolling all day, you can still, I'm in the 400s and I'm still scrolling. So this definitely is not the most efficient way to move through this particular sheet, which is 2021 rows long. So some keystrokes that would be helpful to know. If your cursor is not sitting up in A1, and it'll tell you where it is right here in the thing called the name box, you can quickly get to A1 by holding down your control key and hitting the home key on your keyboard. So control home always takes you to the top of the document. Likewise, if you hold down the control key and you hit the end key, END, that'll take you to the end of the workbook. And in this case, it took me over to column M because at some point I must have typed in that particular column. Otherwise, control end should take you to the very last cell. So it takes you to the last row, column, cell, intersection you ever typed in. So this brings up a good point. Many times when people print an Excel sheet, it gives them blank rows after, and they're like, Dana, I'm printing these blank sheets of paper at the end of my Excel workbook. What's going wrong? So I always tell people it prints from a control home to a control end. So if you do have it printing a little bit too far, you can always highlight those extra columns and physically delete those columns. And then if you do a control home and you save it, then what should happen when you do a control end next time is it will take you to the end of your data set, and that's what it'll print to. So again, you just have to delete those extra rows or extra columns, save the workbook, and then you can print it out. So again, quick jumps around control home, control end to get to the end of the workbook, and that works in pretty much any Windows application. So another thing I want to show you is how to move around using keystrokes using the control still. So something I do all the time to get to the bottom of this particular column is I will hold down my control key and hit the down arrow. And it quickly took me until it hits a blank in that row. If you use a control right arrow, it'll take you until it hits a blank column, control up arrow, control left arrow. So I'm just kind of moving around by using these keystrokes. What you can also do if you're in the middle of your list, the home key always takes you to the beginning of the line, and then your end key followed by enter takes you to the end of the line. So again, that was home to get to the front, end enter to get to the end, and of course control home taking you the whole way up, control end taking you the whole way to the bottom. All right, so let's go ahead and use these keystrokes with selecting as well. Most people would select this list by starting with their big white plus sign in A1, and clicking and dragging down and over, and then flying down and flying off the sheet and flying back. And maybe you're smart enough to start at the bottom and work your way back up. But how I would select this sheet, excuse me, this list is I would just click anywhere inside the list and do a control A, and it'll select your list. Now, if you weren't in a list, a control A will select your whole worksheet. So now I have all 16 million cells selected, which isn't what I wanted. So again, step number one, click inside the list. Control A, which is a select all, would be the quickest way to grab that entire list. All right, another way to grab this list, let me go ahead and do a control home, is to use the control and shift and use that down arrow. Holding down control and shift using the right arrow grabs the list in 2 keystrokes. So let me do that again. That was control shift down arrow, control shift right arrow. So that's a quick way. Or if you didn't want the whole thing, let me go ahead back up home. The shift and the arrows just allow you to select that much. So if you grab too much, you can always hold the shift key down and unselect as well to select less or more. So I'm just kind of combining that with the control key so that when I hit the down arrow, it grabs the whole way to the end. Well, it's almost been my 5-minute mark, so I hope these keystrokes will save you a lot of time. I know my class always oohs and ahs when I show them the whole click at the beginning, do a control shift down arrow, and grab that whole column. So I hope you like these shortcuts, and I hope everyone's keeping safe during this time. Thanks for joining me.